Jaden is a young black man living in a poor neighborhood of the city. Life has not always been easy for him. Every day, he works at a construction site, balancing shifts between serving customers at a coffee shop and laboring at the site. Exhausted but determined, Jaden is trying to save money to change his life and pursue his dream of going to school. One late afternoon, after finishing his shift, Jaden was walking down a deserted street. The sunset dimmed the colors on the rooftops of the buildings. As he passed a street corner, he saw an elderly man sitting on the sidewalk, holding an empty paper cup with just a few coins left in it. Jaden felt moved by the sight of the old man. With his wrinkled face and weary eyes, he sat hunched in ragged clothes, clearly having endured many cold nights. Without much thought, Jaden reached into his pocket and took out what little money he had left after a long day's work. "Hello, sir. Are you hungry? Let me get you a hot bowl of soup," Jaden offered. The old man looked up, a mix of surprise and joy in his eyes. He smiled gently and nodded. "Thank you, son. It's been so long since I had a warm bowl of soup," he said in a faint voice. Jaden nodded and quickly went to a nearby eatery, buying a hot bowl of soup and some bread for the elderly man. When he returned, he sat down beside the man, handed him the soup, and watched him quietly. The old man ate slowly, his eyes filled with gratitude. Jaden felt a warmth in his heart he had never experienced before. Though he wasn't wealthy and life was full of challenges, helping someone else made him feel truly happy. After the old man finished eating, Jaden remained by his side. Filled with curiosity, he decided to start a conversation. "How long have you been out here?" Jaden asked, his eyes full of empathy. The old man looked up, a sad smile appearing on his face. "I don't remember anymore, son. It's been years. I've wandered from place to place. Wherever there's a bit of shelter, I stay. Wherever there's a bit of food, I make do," he sighed. Jaden felt a pang in his heart. Unable to fully imagine such a hard life, he began sharing his own story with the old man, telling him about his construction job and his dream of continuing his education. The old man listened to Jaden's story, and something shifted in his gaze. He realized that this young man was a good soul, always willing to help others without expecting anything in return. Jaden didn't just speak of his struggles. He shared his hopes and dreams too. He talked about wanting to become a civil engineer to improve his life and support his family. The old man listened intently, not missing a single detail. In his eyes, there was a mixture of empathy and admiration for the young man. "You're truly a good person, Jaden," the old man said after a moment of silence. "I see something in you that others don't have: perseverance and kindness." Jaden smiled, surprised by the old man's words. "I just want to do the right thing. Everyone goes through tough times, and if I can help, I will." The old man looked at Jaden with deep gratitude. He realized that despite the hardships of life, there were still kind-hearted and sincere people like Jaden. Since that first encounter, Jaden made it a point to visit Mr. Thomas, the name the old man introduced himself by, every day. After each shift, Jaden would bring him a bit of food or a drink. Helping Mr. Thomas became a part of Jaden's daily routine. Jaden would bring hot meals, bottles of clean water, and sometimes clothes he'd managed to gather from friends or neighbors. For Jaden, it was a simple joy to see the happiness and gratitude in Mr. Thomas's eyes. In those moments, Jaden felt his own life had more meaning, despite his exhausting work and distant dreams. Some afternoons, Jaden would sit by Mr. Thomas and listen to his life stories. Mr. Thomas spoke of adventurous journeys from his youth, places he had traveled, and people he had met. Jaden listened with curiosity and admiration, realizing that the old man had once lived an incredibly vivid and dynamic life. Mr. Thomas had been an explorer of sorts, traveling to different countries and taking on various jobs. He spoke of days spent at sea while working on a fishing boat, of journeys through deserts and dense jungles, and of the many people he had met along the way, each carrying their own unique stories. Jaden listened and imagined the scenes Mr. Thomas described. feeling as if he too were living within those tales. Meanwhile, Mr. Thomas took the time to learn more about Jaden. He knew that life hadn't always been easy for the young man. Jaden worked tirelessly at both the construction site and the coffee shop. Yet he never lost his optimism or his love for life. Mr. Thomas admired Jaden's perseverance and kindness, and he began to feel that perhaps this young man was the one he had been looking for all along. Jaden didn't just help Mr. Thomas by bringing him food or warm clothes. He also assisted him with daily tasks, such as finding directions, locating a spot to shelter from the rain, or even helping him search for a small job to earn a bit of income. Jaden never felt discouraged or tired from helping Mr. Thomas. He always did everything with genuine kindness. One day, when Jaden went to visit Mr. Thomas, the wind started to pick up, and a light rain began to fall. Jaden led Mr. Thomas to shelter under the awning of an old building. Mr. Thomas suggested Jaden go on his way, not wanting to inconvenience him. But Jaden decided to stay and share the feeling of solitude and hardship as they waited out the rain together. They sat beneath the worn awning, watching raindrops patter on the pavement. Jaden shared stories from his childhood, recalling how his mother would take him outside to play in the rain, and how they would jump and dance in puddles. These were beautiful memories Jaden held dear, and now he shared them with Mr. Thomas, warming both their hearts on this cold, rainy day. Mr. Thomas listened, smiling, and felt the warmth of Jaden's spirit. He realized that this young man wasn't helping him out of pity, but rather from a genuinely compassionate and sincere heart. Jaden offered his help without expecting anything in return, and that moved Mr. Thomas deeply, making him reflect on his plans for the future. Mr. Thomas knew that he didn't have much time left and that he needed to find someone to pass on his legacy. Not just his wealth, but also the values he held dear. He had met many people throughout his life, but no one had inspired his trust and admiration as Jaden did. He began to consider revealing his secret to the young man. But first, he wanted to be sure that Jaden was truly the one worthy of it. Mr. Thomas began to seriously consider revealing his secret to Jaden. He knew his time was limited, and the moment to find a successor had come. He needed someone who would not only inherit his wealth but also embody the values of kindness, perseverance, and love for humanity. One afternoon, after Jaden brought him a hot bowl of soup, the two of them sat down on the sidewalk to chat as usual. After a moment of silence, Mr. Thomas looked at Jaden thoughtfully. "Jaden, have you ever thought about what you would do to change your life?" Mr. Thomas asked, his voice gentle yet full of meaning. Jaden paused, thinking carefully before he replied. "I've always wanted to do something bigger, sir. I want to go to college, become a civil engineer, and work so that I can help my family. But I know that to do that, I have to work hard and save a lot of money." Mr. Thomas nodded, smiling. "Have you ever thought that life could change suddenly, without having to wait for so long?" Jaden furrowed his brow, looking at Mr. Thomas with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Mr. Thomas sighed, then began to share his true story with Jaden. He revealed that he wasn't an ordinary homeless man but, in fact, a billionaire. He had chosen to live as a beggar to find someone worthy of inheriting his fortune, someone he could trust, a person with a kind heart who wouldn't be driven by greed. Jaden listened in shock, barely able to believe what he was hearing. He looked at Mr. Thomas, searching for any sign that this was some sort of joke. But the sincerity and seriousness in the old man's eyes made Jaden realize that everything he was saying was true. Are you serious?" Jaden stammered. "You're a billionaire? And you want to find a successor?" Mr. Thomas nodded, his eyes filled with warmth and honesty. "Yes, Jaden, I've met many people in my life, but no one has inspired my trust and admiration like you have. You have kindness, perseverance, and you're not blinded by money. That's why I want you to inherit my fortune." Jaden was speechless. He didn't know what to say. Nothing in his life had ever been as unexpected and monumental as this. He didn't know what to feel: joy, fear, or simply overwhelming disbelief. Although overwhelmed, Jaden knew that Mr. Thomas wasn't one to lie. He felt a mix of gratitude and anxiety. Mr. Thomas suggested that Jaden take on a few challenges to prove he was truly deserving of the fortune he intended to pass on. Mr. Thomas didn't want this to be a decision based solely on feelings. He wanted practical tests as well. The next day, Mr. Thomas took Jaden to a homeless shelter and asked him to volunteer there. This was the first test, to see if Jaden could help others with genuine compassion and dedication. Jaden agreed without hesitation. He was used to helping Mr. Thomas, and extending that help to others felt natural to him. Jaden began working at the shelter, assisting with meal distribution, cleaning, and talking with the homeless residents. He listened to their heartbreaking stories, feeling their pain and despair. Yet he could also sense hope in their eyes. Jaden realized he was doing something meaningful, not just to prove himself but to bring small moments of joy to those less fortunate. Mr. Thomas observed Jaden from afar. He saw the young man's sincerity in every action. From the warm smile as he served food to the attentive way he listened to people's stories without a hint of judgment or pity. This only strengthened Mr. Thomas's conviction that his decision was the right one. After a week at the shelter, Jaden had earned the affection of everyone there. They saw him as a friend, someone who could listen and share without judgment. Mr. Thomas knew that Jaden had passed the first test brilliantly. Jaden's actions began to draw attention from the surrounding community. People noticed how he frequently stopped by to help Mr. Thomas. And now, they saw him volunteering at the homeless shelter. His kindness and dedication not only touched the hearts of those he helped but also inspired others in the neighborhood. One day, while Jaden was serving food at the shelter, a middle-aged woman approached him. She introduced herself as Clara, a resident nearby. She told him that she had been watching his efforts over the past few weeks and was deeply moved by his compassion. "You're truly an amazing person, Jaden. Not only have you helped Mr. Thomas, but you've also extended your kindness to complete strangers. This community needs more people like you," Clara said warmly. Jaden smiled humbly. "I'm just doing what I believe is right, ma'am. Everyone faces hard times, and if I can help, I will." After meeting Mrs. Clara, Jaden realized that his actions were not only bringing joy to others, but also spreading a sense of love and sharing within the community. More people began to contribute alongside Jaden. They brought used items, food, and small donations to support the homeless shelter. The spirit of the community grew stronger, and Jaden felt he was truly making a meaningful difference. Though Jaden's actions brought joy and positive change, his life remained filled with hardships. His construction job was demanding, and sometimes Jaden felt utterly exhausted. The long, grueling shifts took a toll on his body, yet he didn't allow himself to stop. He knew that every effort held value, and if he wanted to change his life, he had to persevere. One evening, after finishing his shift, Jaden returned to his small room and collapsed on his bed. Feeling completely worn out, the aches from his hard labor kept him from sleeping. He thought about Mr. Thomas, the homeless people at the shelter, and his own dreams. There were moments when he felt like giving up. But then he remembered the gratitude in Mr. Thomas's eyes and the smiles at the shelter. Those memories gave him the strength to keep going. The next morning, Jaden woke up early as usual. He drank a glass of water, took a deep breath, and reminded himself to keep pushing forward. He went to the construction site and began a new day of work with renewed determination. Despite the fatigue, he knew he was doing meaningful things, and he couldn't give up. Mr. Thomas was aware of the challenges Jaden faced, but he chose not to interfere. He wanted Jaden to overcome these trials on his own, knowing that the hardships would make him stronger. Mr. Thomas believed that only by overcoming such difficulties would Jaden truly be deserving of what he intended to pass on to him. Jaden continued to work hard, both to make a living and to help others. Little did he know that these very challenges and hardships were helping him grow, bringing him closer to a profound transformation in his life. After months of hard work and demonstrating his sincerity, one day, Mr. Thomas took Jaden to a small coffee shop. They sat down at a table by the window, where gentle sunlight filtered through the glass, creating a cozy atmosphere. Mr. Thomas looked at Jaden with a serious yet affectionate gaze. Jaden, you've shown me that you're truly special. You possess the kindness, perseverance, and dedication that I've been looking for. So today, I want to make you a special offer, Mr. Thomas said, his voice slow but firm. Jaden looked at him in surprise, his heart filled with curiosity and a touch of excitement. What kind of offer? Mr. Thomas smiled warmly. I want you to accompany me to a place where you can better understand what I want to pass on to you. It's a part of my fortune. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for you to change your life and help many others. Jaden was taken aback, feeling both surprised and uncertain. He had never imagined that Mr. Thomas might make such an offer. He didn't know where Mr. Thomas was planning to take him, but he sensed that this could be a chance to transform his life, to truly turn his dreams into reality. You want me to go with you, right now? Jaden asked, his voice laced with hesitation yet also a hint of eagerness. Yes, Jaden, it's time for you to see more clearly what I've been preparing. Trust me, Mr. Thomas said, his eyes filled with encouragement. Jaden nodded, deciding that he would follow Mr. Thomas wherever he intended to take him. This was a pivotal moment, and Jaden felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Mr. Thomas led Jaden to an estate on the outskirts of the city. They stopped at the gates of a large mansion, with sprawling gardens and lush green trees lining the entrance. Jaden was amazed by the grandeur of the place. He could never have imagined that Mr. Thomas owned a home like this. As they stepped inside, Jaden's surprise only grew upon seeing the luxurious interior and the artwork adorning the walls. Mr. Thomas gave him a tour of the house, from the expansive living room with its elegant sofas to the study lined with shelves filled with books. This is one of my properties, Jaden, Mr. Thomas said as they entered a spacious room with large windows overlooking the garden. I want you to feel this place because it may be yours in the future. Jaden stood still, unable to believe what he was hearing. You actually want to give this place to me? Mr. Thomas nodded, his eyes filled with sincerity. Yes, Jaden, but it's not just about this house. I want you to continue my work, to help those less fortunate and spread love and kindness. I see qualities in you that I trust, and I want you to be my successor. Jaden's heart pounded as he processed the gravity of the moment. He had never thought his life could change in this way. The hardships he had endured, the dreams that had once felt out of reach, now stood right before him. He felt both elated and apprehensive about the enormous responsibility Mr. Thomas was entrusting to him. I don't know if I can do it, sir. This is a huge responsibility, Jaden said, his voice trembling. Mr. Thomas placed a reassuring hand on Jaden's shoulder, smiling warmly. You don't need to worry. I'll be by your side, guiding and helping you. The most important thing is that you have a kind heart and determination. The rest, you will learn with time. Jaden took a deep breath and nodded. I will do my best, sir. I know this is an opportunity one can't afford to miss. After accepting Mr. Thomas's offer, Jaden began to get involved in his business. Mr. Thomas took him to his downtown office, where Jaden was introduced to the staff and company executives. Having never set foot in a professional business environment, everything was new to Jaden. The employees looked at him with curiosity and a bit of hesitation, uncertain about the young man's potential to inherit the empire Mr. Thomas had built. Mr. Thomas wanted Jaden to start with the basics. He assigned him small tasks, such as reading and analyzing business reports, familiarizing himself with the management system, and attending meetings to understand how the company operated. First, Jaden felt overwhelmed due to his lack of professional knowledge, but knowing that Mr. Thomas believed in him gave him the strength to keep trying. Jaden often stayed up late studying. He read books on business, management, and leadership skills. The new and complex information sometimes left him feeling confused. But he didn't give up. He sought help from company employees and guidance from Mr. Thomas. Gradually, he began to understand his role better, and his confidence steadily grew. One of Jaden's first major challenges came when Mr. Thomas entrusted him with overseeing a small project. This project involved supplying food and essential items to homeless shelters, a part of the company's charitable activities. Jaden saw this as an opportunity to apply his newly acquired knowledge and prove himself to Mr. Thomas. Jaden worked tirelessly to ensure the project's smooth execution. He met with suppliers, coordinated with staff at the homeless shelters, and collaborated with the management team to devise a detailed plan. The project faced numerous obstacles, from supply shortages to logistics issues, but Jaden was determined to find solutions. He frequently sought support from Mr. Thomas, who encouraged and guided him through each challenge. After weeks of hard work, the project was finally completed. The homeless shelters received the necessary support, and everyone involved was pleased with the outcome. Mr. Thomas was immensely proud of Jaden, recognizing the young man's genuine effort and first success in his new career. Jaden, too, felt a deep sense of pride and happiness, seeing his hard work translate into a positive impact. After completing his first charitable project, Jaden realized that business isn't solely about profit. It can also be a tool for helping those in need and adding value to the community. Mr. Thomas had shown him that with wealth and power, one could create positive change if used wisely. Jaden became more deeply involved in the company's operations. He met with partners, learned negotiation skills, and managed larger projects. Though challenges arose, he never lost heart. He always remembered Mr. Thomas's advice that the most important qualities were kindness and perseverance. Meanwhile, Jaden's relationship with Mr. Thomas grew closer. They weren't just mentor and student, they had become close friends. Mr. Thomas often shared life lessons, speaking of mistakes he had made and successes he had achieved. Jaden listened, absorbing these valuable insights, and felt the warmth and trust Mr. Thomas had in him. One evening, as they sat on the veranda of the mansion, Mr. Thomas looked at Jaden with pride. "Jaden, you've done exceptionally well. I know that taking on a legacy and responsibility like this isn't easy, but you never gave up." Jaden smiled, his heart full of gratitude. "I'm grateful to you for giving me this chance. I never thought my life could change like this, and I'll do everything to be worthy of your trust." Mr. Thomas nodded, his smile warm and affectionate. "You've shown me that you possess all the qualities I sought. I believe you'll continue to do well, and that you'll not only transform your own life but also the lives of many others." Jaden looked forward, thinking of the future with optimism and hope. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but he also knew that with Mr. Thomas's support and all he had learned, he could overcome anything to become the person Mr. Thomas envisioned. With determination and compassion, Jaden understood that he was not only building a new life for himself but also creating a brighter future for those around him. He felt that his life had truly changed, and from that moment on, he would walk forward with all his passion and dedication. After Jaden agreed to take on the responsibility Mr. Thomas entrusted to him, Mr. Thomas began guiding him through the steps of managing assets and overseeing charitable activities. Mr. Thomas wanted Jaden not only to inherit ownership but to truly understand the value of using wealth to do good, to spread love, and to help those in need. Mr. Thomas introduced Jaden to key employees in his company, a large financial organization with significant charitable initiatives. Jaden met the leadership team and managers who had helped Mr. Thomas build his financial empire. Initially, Jaden felt overwhelmed. He lacked formal education and experience in finance, and this professional environment was entirely new to him. Mr. Thomas didn't rush Jaden. He knew that to become a good leader, Jaden needed time and experience. He let Jaden start from the basics, learning to manage records, sitting in on small meetings, and understanding financial reports. Mr. Thomas also gave Jaden small challenges, such as managing charitable projects with limited budgets, to help him learn decision-making and accountability. Jaden spent much time learning, studying economics and management on his own. Though he faced many challenges and sometimes felt the pressure, he never gave up. He knew Mr. Thomas had placed a great deal of trust in him, and he didn't want to disappoint the person who had given him a chance to change his life. One of Jaden's first projects was establishing a scholarship fund for underprivileged children. He remembered his own struggles as a child, how having better educational opportunities might have made life easier. Jaden decided to use a portion of Mr. Thomas's wealth to create this scholarship fund, helping children facing similar hardships. For the first time, Jaden felt the power of using money to bring positive change to the community, and it filled him with immense pride. Though everything seemed to be moving in the right direction, Jaden faced unforeseen challenges. As he started taking over business operations, he encountered complexities he hadn't anticipated. One of the biggest challenges was managing people, how to motivate employees, resolve internal conflicts, and ensure everyone was working toward a common goal. During one meeting, Jaden noticed some employees exhibiting a lack of cooperation. They questioned his abilities, doubting that someone with no prior experience could successfully lead the company. This made Jaden feel both uncomfortable and pressured. He knew that to earn their respect, he needed to prove his capabilities through concrete actions. Mr. Thomas helped Jaden tremendously in building trust with the staff. He advised Jaden that to be a good leader, decisiveness was important, but empathy and the ability to listen were equally vital. Jaden began dedicating time to talking with employees, understanding the difficulties they faced, and listening to their feedback. He also joined in company activities, working alongside them and sharing in their challenges. Gradually, the employees began to respect and trust Jaden more. They saw his effort and sincerity, and this changed their perception of him. Jaden realized that earning trust and respect required time and persistence. He also learned that a leader isn't just someone who makes decisions but someone who listens and walks alongside their team. Jaden continued to expand the charitable work Mr. Thomas had started. He scaled up the scholarship fund, establishing additional programs to support the homeless and families in need. Jaden often volunteered, going directly to meet and talk with those requiring assistance. He understood that to provide meaningful help, he needed to understand what they were going through. One day, during a visit to a shelter, Jaden met a young boy named Marcus. Marcus reminded Jaden of himself as a child. His eyes filled with hope yet clouded with the sadness and weariness of life on the streets. Jaden decided to help Marcus by arranging for him to receive support at a center and securing him a place in school. Jaden also spent time talking with other families in the community. He realized that assistance doesn't only come from financial support, but also from empathy and shared experiences. He listened to their stories, learned from their struggles, and understood that everyone faced unique challenges but could overcome them with the right support. Connecting with the community helped Jaden better understand his role and responsibilities. He wasn't merely inheriting Mr. Thomas's fortune. He was responsible for using that wealth to improve the lives of those around him. Jaden felt he was walking the path Mr. Thomas had envisioned, and he was determined to continue this journey with love and dedication. Mr. Thomas grew weaker by the day, and Jaden knew that his mentor's time was running short. Mr. Thomas had become the teacher, friend, and father figure that Jaden had never had. Jaden spent as much time as he could by his side, listening to his advice and reminiscing together over the journey they had shared. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden, Mr. Thomas looked at Jaden with deep affection. "Jaden, I've lived a full life and have no regrets. I'm very proud of you, and I know you'll carry on the legacy I've built," he said, his voice frail but filled with sincerity. Jaden held his hand, feeling the weight of the moment. "You've changed my life, and I'll never forget all you've done for me. I promise to continue your work, to make this community a better place, and to pass on the values you've taught me." Mr. Thomas smiled, his eyes peaceful. "I know you will, Jaden. You have everything it takes: kindness, perseverance, and a compassionate heart. Remember, money is only a tool, What matters is how you use it to bring happiness to others. A few weeks later, Mr. Thomas passed away peacefully. His departure left a vast emptiness in Jaden's heart. Yet it also became the drive to continue the journey he had begun. Jaden knew he could never replace Mr. Thomas, but he could carry forward the legacy he left, a legacy of love, sharing, and compassion. Jaden organized a small memorial service for Mr. Thomas, attended by people from the community who came to pay their respects. Homeless individuals, struggling families, and company employees all came to express their gratitude to the man who had given them hope and help. Jaden stood before the crowd, sharing stories about Mr. Thomas, about the man's deeds and the lessons he had imparted. Mr. Thomas taught me that the most important thing isn't how much money we have, but what we do with it. He used his wealth to bring joy and support to those who needed it most, and I promised to carry on that mission. Mr. Thomas didn't just leave me a fortune. He left me a responsibility, the responsibility to make life better for those around me. Everyone listened, moved by the sincerity in Jaden's words. They knew that Mr. Thomas had entrusted his legacy to a worthy successor, and they believed that Jaden would continue his work with love and dedication. Jaden continued on his path, not merely as the heir to Mr. Thomas's wealth, but as the bearer of the beautiful values he had left behind. He knew that the road ahead would bring challenges, but with love and determination, he would overcome them all to build a legacy of compassion and generosity, a legacy Mr. Thomas had begun, and which he would carry forward. After Mr. Thomas's passing, Jaden felt the weight of his responsibilities more profoundly. He wasn't just inheriting wealth. He was inheriting the values Mr. Thomas had dedicated his life to nurturing. Jaden began expanding his charitable projects, looking for ways to amplify their impact within the community. He established a new community support center, offering employment assistance, financial counseling, and skills courses for those facing hardships. Jaden understood that simply giving money provided only temporary relief, but empowering people with knowledge and skills could transform their lives in the long term. This center became a haven for those seeking not just financial support, but also the chance to learn and build a better future. Jaden brought Marcus, the young boy he had once helped, to the center to study and grow. Jaden considered Marcus a part of his family and did everything he could to provide him with a better life. Marcus received training in technical skills, participated in sports activities, and enjoyed an education he had once only dreamed of. Jaden felt immense joy watching Marcus grow more confident and hopeful about the future. Jaden also invited community members to participate in building the center, knowing that sustainable progress could only be achieved with collective involvement. Those who had once received help from Jaden and Mr. Thomas returned to support others. The center became a symbol of compassion and unity, a place where people came together to learn, build, and grow, ensuring no one was left behind. Although Jaden's efforts brought substantial benefits to the community, he didn't always have an easy path. Some people resisted the changes, dismissing Jaden's actions as mere showmanship with no real value. A few even questioned his motives, suggesting he was just trying to maintain Mr. Thomas's image for personal gain. Jaden felt deeply saddened by these criticisms. He knew he was doing the right thing, but being misunderstood and judged still hurt. At times, he wondered if he was truly on the right path. However, whenever he faced doubts, he remembered Mr. Thomas's words, "Always do good, and don't let criticism shake your compassionate heart." Deciding not to let the criticism discourage him, Jaden chose to focus on the positive outcomes and the people he had helped. He organized more community meetings where he shared details about his projects and listened to feedback from the community. Jaden wanted everyone to feel involved in the changes and to see his sincere intentions. At one such gathering, Mrs. Clara, the woman Jaden had met at the homeless shelter, stood up to speak. She shared with everyone what Jaden had done for the community and his relentless, genuine efforts. Her words moved many in the room, shifting their perceptions of Jaden. They began to see him not as someone seeking attention, but as someone carrying Mr. Thomas's legacy with love and dedication. This support encouraged Jaden to continue his work, knowing he had allies who understood his genuine motives and shared his vision for a better community. Marcus grew into a determined and talented young man. The boy Jaden had once helped was now ready for new challenges. Seeing his potential, Jaden decided to give Marcus the opportunity to manage a small project at the community center, a program aimed at helping disadvantaged youth find jobs and learn trades. Marcus was excited yet slightly anxious. Jaden recalled his own feelings when Mr. Thomas had entrusted him with his first responsibility and understood the emotions Marcus was experiencing. He promised to be there, guiding and supporting Marcus through each initial step. Marcus worked diligently, meticulously planning each aspect of the project and meeting with the young participants to understand their struggles. Jaden felt a surge of pride as he watched Marcus emerge as a compassionate leader, someone who could listen and make wise decisions. Youth in Marcus's program began securing jobs, and some even returned to the center to help others, just as Jaden and Mr. Thomas had once helped them. Jaden realized that Marcus embodied the success of his and Mr. Thomas's efforts. The boy who had once wandered the streets, deprived of love and opportunity, had now become a confident, capable young man. Marcus not only received help but also learned to give back to the community, carrying forward the values of kindness and compassion that Jaden and Mr. Thomas had instilled. As the years passed, Jaden continued to expand the community center's activities and charitable funds. He established additional support centers in other cities, spreading the values Mr. Thomas had instilled in him to reach even more people. Jaden became a model of perseverance and kindness, and his story became widely known, inspiring young people searching for purpose in life. Jaden also remained dedicated to his own learning. He enrolled in courses on management and leadership and even took up teaching at universities, sharing his journey with young students. He wanted to convey the message that anyone, regardless of their background, can change their life and make the world a better place with determination and timely support. One day, as Jaden stood before a group of students sharing his story, he noticed eyes full of hope and aspiration, the same look he once had. He knew Mr. Thomas would be proud of everything he had accomplished, and Jaden felt a deep gratitude for the man who had given him the chance to transform his life. After his talk, a student approached and asked, "Mr. Jaden, how can I start helping others when I don't have many resources?" Jaden smiled, placing a hand on the student's shoulder. "You don't need a lot of money or power to help others. What matters most is having a compassionate heart and willingness. Start small, listen, share, and spend time with those around you. The most important thing is to never lose your kindness." Jaden understood that Mr. Thomas's legacy was not just in material wealth but in the ripple effect of compassion and love. He was determined to carry forward the path Mr. Thomas had paved and to inspire others to join in building a better community. With love and perseverance, Jaden knew he was not only fulfilling Mr. Thomas's legacy but also creating a future where everyone had a chance to grow and lead meaningful lives. He would continue this journey, transforming not only his own life but also the lives of countless others along the way. Forever, Jaden realized that to sustain and expand the values Mr. Thomas had left behind, he needed to build a strong foundation for his charitable efforts. He decided to establish a formal nonprofit organization named the Thomas Legacy. This organization would bring together people who shared a common purpose, a place where individuals could contribute their time, talents, and resources to create positive change in the community. Jaden began searching for trustworthy partners to help build the organization. He invited friends he trusted, those who had journeyed with him through his charitable work, and even some individuals he had helped. Jaden wanted the organization not merely to be a hub of power or resources but a community of compassion and solidarity. One of the first people Jaden invited was Marcus. Filled with gratitude and dedication, Marcus agreed immediately, eager to contribute everything he could to carry forward the legacy of Mr. Thomas and Jaden. Jaden also invited Mrs. Clara to join the advisory board, adding the perspective of someone who had witnessed the community's struggles firsthand. Together, Jaden and his team began crafting a detailed plan to grow the organization. They focused on three primary objectives: education, support for the homeless, and job opportunities. Jaden understood that only through access to education and employment could people transform their lives. He also aimed to expand the organization's reach to other cities, so that the Thomas legacy could impact even more lives. Jaden's dream was becoming a reality, not just as a continuation of Mr. Thomas's legacy but as a living, growing force for good that would endure for generations. He knew the journey was challenging, but with a team united by compassion and purpose, he was confident they could make a lasting difference. Together, they would build a brighter, more hopeful future for all. The establishment of the Thomas Legacy Organization was not an easy task. Jaden and his team faced numerous legal procedures, from registering the nonprofit organization to securing funding. Jaden felt exhausted dealing with the complex paperwork and regulations, but he knew that this was a necessary step for the organization to operate sustainably and transparently. To raise funds for the organization, Jaden decided to host the first fundraising event. He invited friends, Mr. Thomas's business partners, and even those who had received help from him. The event took place in a large venue in the city, where Jaden had carefully prepared to create a warm and sincere atmosphere. During the fundraiser, Jaden shared his story and Mr. Thomas's story. He spoke about his fateful encounter with Mr. Thomas, the lessons he had learned from him, and the positive changes he had brought to the community. Jaden's heartfelt words touched the hearts of many. They felt the compassion and determination in Jaden, and many decided to contribute financially to support the Thomas Legacy Organization. By the end of the fundraiser, Jaden felt deeply moved. He realized that he was not alone on this journey. There were many people willing to join him in bringing good to the community. The funds raised were sufficient to begin the organization's first projects, and Jaden knew this was just the beginning of a long journey ahead. With the funds raised, Jaden decided to launch the organization's first projects. One of his top priorities was to establish a vocational training center for disadvantaged youth. He wanted to create a place where young people could learn and develop essential skills to secure stable jobs and transform their lives. Jaden and Marcus worked together to plan the vocational training center. They rented a large building located in the city center, accessible to many young people in need of support. They designed vocational courses such as electronics repair, cooking, basic programming, and various other skills. Marcus, with his enthusiasm and talent, took on the role of center director, managing and overseeing daily operations. The vocational training center quickly attracted many young participants, each coming with hopes for a better future. Jaden regularly visited the center to motivate them, talking with students, listening to the challenges they faced, and offering advice. He wanted them to feel that, no matter how difficult their current circumstances, they could change their lives with determination and timely support. The initial results of the vocational center were very promising. Many students found jobs after completing the courses, and some even returned to the center to help new learners. Jaden felt immense pride seeing the positive changes in the lives of those he had helped. Knowing this was a testament to the success of the Thomas Legacy Organization. During his time working at the center, Marcus demonstrated his capability and dedication. Jaden saw in Marcus a reflection of himself from years before, when he was still searching for direction and receiving guidance from Mr. Thomas. Marcus not only excelled at managing the center but also constantly thought of new ways to expand and improve the organization's activities. Jaden decided to entrust Marcus with more responsibilities, wanting him to gradually become the leader of the Thomas Legacy Organization, just as Mr. Thomas had once placed his trust in Jaden. Though Marcus was initially nervous, with Jaden's support and guidance, he grew more confident and mature in his role. Jaden also knew that for Marcus to truly inherit the legacy, he needed to understand the core values of the organization: compassion, sharing, and love. Jaden spent a lot of time talking with Marcus, sharing the lessons he had learned from Mr. Thomas, and helping Marcus understand that the most important things weren't wealth or power, but how they could be used to bring happiness to others. With enthusiasm and a strong desire to learn, Marcus absorbed Jaden's teachings. He understood the immense responsibility he now carried but knew he wasn't alone. With Jaden's guidance and the community's support, Marcus believed he could continue to build upon and develop the legacy that Mr. Thomas and Jaden had established. As the years passed, the Thomas Legacy organization continued to grow and expand. Jaden had built a strong foundation where love, compassion, and kindness were always prioritized. Community support centers and vocational training facilities established by the organization were now present in many cities, offering thousands the opportunity to transform their lives. Jaden gradually handed over the leadership of the organization to Marcus. He knew it was time for Marcus to take the lead and drive the organization forward. Jaden remained by his side as a mentor, yet he wanted Marcus to step into the role of a true leader who would bring about positive change in the community. Jaden felt immense pride watching Marcus mature, taking on his leadership role with boundless passion and dedication. The young boy who once lived on the streets, deprived of love and opportunities, had now become a respected leader, continuing the legacy of Mr. Thomas and Jaden himself. Marcus not only upheld the founding values but also introduced new initiatives that helped the organization grow and spread its positive influence even further. Jaden knew that his journey wasn't over, but he understood he had come a long way. He had transformed the struggles of his past into a drive to change both his own life and the lives of countless others. And now, he could look back proudly, knowing the values Mr. Thomas instilled were thriving, and that the future of the Thomas legacy lay in capable, hopeful hands. Standing on the balcony of one of the community centers he and Marcus had built, Jaden watched children playing, young adults studying, and older people sharing stories. He felt the love and unity that filled the space. This was exactly what Mr. Thomas had envisioned, and Jaden knew he would be deeply proud of all they had accomplished. Jaden smiled, his heart full of hope. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but with love and determination, he and Marcus would continue building a brighter future for all, a future where no one was left behind, and where everyone had the chance to live a meaningful, joyful life.